Good afternoon slash evening. I don't know what 5 o'clock is, Geo. How is oneself?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I enjoyed last night, and I'm looking forward to Saturday against Wolves. Truth be told, Charlie. So right now, you have a happy Geo.
You were there? How was it?
Yeah, it was all right. I thought we played well. I thought Spurs played well. I thought it was a good game. I enjoyed the match. I thought the atmosphere was quite good. I thought we sort of settled for a draw a little bit too easily, but I think that was in line with fatigue and tiredness in the players. I thought all players on the pitch, including the Spurs ones that played 90 minutes, were knackered, truth be told. That was a very good game. I thought everybody worked hard. I don't think we had a bad performer out there, actually. I was impressed with everybody. I think that our sort of worst player, I would say, had a decent game. I think some people had an excellent game. But yeah, I was really pleased with it, actually. And I just have this hangover from Newcastle. I'm doing my best to forget about
Yeah.
it, but I know I'm not the only one. To enough people commented before the game, like when I seen them, that they also were pissed off about Saturday and stuff, and that's probably prevented me from enjoying the point last night. I enjoyed the
Mm.
performance, but I don't think we deserved a win. I think a draw was a fair result, by the way. I think either team could have nicked it, really. But yeah, I was pleased with what I seen, Charlie.
Yeah, when I was watching your the video that went up on the forum channel that you did after the game, when I was making the thumbnail for this morning, and I had it playing in the background when I was listening to it before it went live. Um, what you said about having a sort of almost a hangover from Newcastle really struck with me as well, because there were a couple of times during the match where I found myself reacting as if this was a continuation from the Newcastle game, as if it was just like it had just happened, because it's still, maybe it's just because it was soon after the game, but it still sort of felt fresh there. I was like, the referee for a start was like, I kept judging him as if it was still the same guy
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
Newcastle
yeah.
game, and like I was having a problem with that, and then just like that frustration that of the collapse that caused sort of continued on into this game. And it wasn't until about maybe an hour after the game yesterday, maybe two or something like that, where my brain just clocked in and went, "You've taken 4 points from Spurs this season. It could be considerably worse."
Yeah, yeah. You want to look at it that way, then yeah, 100%. You offer me 4 points from Spurs, Aston Villa, Chelsea at the start of the season. I take it. Obviously, it changes. Obviously, Chelsea at the minute. I'd say, I don't know. I fancy all 6 points against them this season. But generally speaking, before the start of the season,
yeah,
I'd be okay with four. But yeah, I think four versus Spurs is good. It's just one versus Newcastle and Spurs, not so good. But I think if we beat Wolves, I think that point becomes a really good one, if that makes sense.
yes, yeah,
For me, anyway, for me.
yeah. I know what you mean. I feel like I try to judge it because it's so easy to think about things in hindsight a lot of the time, and I try to judge games now, not solely, but you know that thing. I mean, you always talk about. You've just sort of basically said it there. The idea of like before the season, you write down the results. You go these three, 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 three. And honestly, next to Tottenham at the beginning of this season, I probably would have put zero both times. I probably would have said like, listen, if we get anything, that's a bonus point. Tottenham are a good side. They've spent well. They've got good players. They've got in a manager who's very exciting. Like, I probably would have gone nah. I probably would have gone, listen, anything there's a bonus, and to get four is better than that. And that's kind of what I'm more feeling now, but that's obviously in the hindsight of, this is a later debrief than usual. Usually we do it at 8 a.m., but like, or 8:30 or 9, who knows. Sometimes later, who knows, it sort of moves around. But yeah, this is with a little bit more hindsight and a little bit more time to really digest it a bit, and think about, actually, not only was it a point, I think it was a well-earned point. It was hard fought. We could have collapsed, and we didn't. I've said a couple of times on this show that I felt like we have sort of grown into a team who do fight towards the end of games. It's annoying a lot of the time, because a lot of the time we feel like, well, why haven't we been doing this for the 30 minutes in this half before this moment, and then maybe the first half or whatever. But we are a team who carry on fighting, and we did it again last night, and I'm actually quite happy with that. It might be a different feeling if this was a game against, I don't know, someone who's lower down the league or whatever. But in a London derby against Tottenham, I'm happy with the way we went about it as well. I thought we really did. We could have nicked it. We could have got the goal. We could have got the win, and I don't think it would have been fully undeserved. I don't think Tottenham would have been able to go, how have they done that? If we did that, it would have been actually We had the opportunities. We defended really well. I don't know. I thought by and large now, maybe if you'd asked me directly after the game, I might have felt a little bit differently. But I think now I'm happy with the way it played out.
Yeah, I've seen us play worse this season and win.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true.
That's what I will say. I think there's been a few games recently. I've enjoyed bits of it. You know, the first half against Newcastle, the first half against Aston Villa, Freiburg, Brentford, and last night for the majority of the game, I would say I've actually enjoyed how we played. It's possibly overshadowed by the second half against Aston Villa and the last half hour against Newcastle. That has probably possibly overshadowed the sort of positive performances for myself, really. I don't mean that to happen. It's not like I do it on purpose. It's just how I feel, honestly. And I think it's because it feels like that is a fairer reflection of the season thus far overall, rather than the improvement in performances. But since Antonio has returned, I've been much happier with how we've been playing. I enjoyed last night, Charlie. Sometimes you come away from attending a game feeling that you perhaps haven't had value for your money or your time or the stress. Thank you, Houston. But actually, despite all the chaos with travel in the last couple of days, I've come away. I'm glad I went last night, and I felt like I got bang for my buck, if you know what I mean. I was pleased with what I seen. I was pleased with a couple of things as well from Moyes' perspective. I think switching James Ward-Prowse and Lucas Paqueta for the second half I was pleased with. And I thought it yielded a good outcome on the pitch as well. I thought it allowed Jan Bone to get weirdly. I thought Paqueta almost marked doggy better than what Ward-Prowse was doing in the first half. So it allowed Bowen just to go further forward in the second half. Nothing came of it. I thought Spurs, this is what I said in a review last night, and I stand by. I've tried to watch the game back on the train home, which was challenging due to signal dropping in and out. But I've watched a lot of the game anyway back because Charlie knows where I sit. It's in a corner. It's hard to see the end of the pitch. And usually all the bloody action happens down the other end. But that's possibly Spurs has possibly been the best team I've seen deal with Jared Bowen in open play, actually, because I thought Bowen was on it last night. I thought he was up for it. I thought his movement was good. I thought his dribbling was good. The problem was I thought Spurs defending was excellent against Jared Bowen. They just stopped him from playing. But yeah, listen, you've got a happy Geo Charlie.
Yeah, I think it was something actually me and Richard were speaking out on a watch along because Richard was talking in there and we said the exact same thing at almost the exact same time. That opening 20 minutes was terrifying. The first 20 minutes of that game, like I went into the game, I predicted a loss. It started and I felt like, do you know what? I feel like I'm pretty bang on with this one. I feel like sometimes you do a prediction and it instantly feels like it's wrong. This first 20 minutes of that game, I was like, nah, we're going to lose. Like, we weren't coping with stuff. We were... you've seen us this season come out all guns blazing very early on in the game, and then after 10 minutes, we completely just like, that's when we sit back or whatever. Like, it was not that today. Oh, yesterday, sorry. It was like, bang, we're struggling instantaneously. Spurs are on us. We don't know how to deal with it. We're at 6s and 7s. They score, and it feels like, although it's good movement, I feel like it's a very obvious one to defend, and it's just a basic mistake that causes it goal to go in from Emerson. Like, we just weren't coping with it. And when we scored, I felt like Spurs would have felt hard done by. I don't feel like we probably deserved to be in the lead at that point. But it was after that, by half time, I felt like we fully deserved it. Like we reacted so well to that opening period of the game where we were just at 6s and 7s, it felt like.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when they scored after 6 minutes, I was this could be a long night. If Spurs crank it up and they turn up the heat here and we concede again, because against Arsenal, we conceded all 6 goals in the space of half an hour. Against Newcastle, we conceded 3 goals in a very short space of time as well. And I just thought, please, can we not have this period where it's just like chance after chance? And I felt like it was almost like a right damage limitation for the next 5-10 minutes, which is just make this game boring, just take this sting out of Spurs' tail and don't give anything else away. And I thought we did that okay. They had 1 or 2 sort of half opportunities. Pedro Porro probably coming closest with his strike from outside the box. But then we sort of started to grow into the game. Zouma got his goal, and I thought we wanted it last night. And I felt like I was watching that actually. And there was a few players who I perhaps have had concerns about over recent weeks actually turned up last night. And I thought that was one of their better performances in recent weeks from them. And it was pleasing to see. At half time, I felt like we were going to go on and win it, truth be told, Charlie. I was sitting there thinking we can go do this. And that's possibly an element of me thinking we were going to win before the game. So it was a confirmation bias. But I was pleased. We played with a lot of heart in that game, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, normally that's kind of all you want, really. I mean, like, obviously it's not, but like, whenever you hear ex-West Ham players talk, or I can't remember what it's called. They do that podcast show thing on the main channel, on the official channel, where and whenever they have new signings and they ask like whichever the ex-player is that Chris is sat next to, be like, "Have you got anything to say?" They're like, "Yeah, just try your hardest, and everyone will love you here." And it's kind of that, and I feel like that's the problem with some, not to name any specific players, but Calvin Phillips. It just feels like there's a laissez-faire attitude to the way they play. They don't come out and go all guns blazing. They're not like, right, I'm gonna do something. It just feels like there's like like whenever they lose the ball high up the pitch, or the press doesn't quite work and you don't track back, and it's small things like that where it just felt like yesterday it all sort of came together. And it comes down to a little bit what Paul was saying here. 4 points off Spurs is very good. Our first 11 is savage, but we have few options off the bench. We need more players as simple as that. Strongly agree, and I feel like, I mean, as with the game before, subs are one of the biggest things coming out of this game. Where do you sit on it now?
Frustrated, because do you know why I was really frustrated, Charlie? Because last night I didn't want to see any subs.
Sure.
Because I could see Antonio was tiring, and I think there was one or two even more tired towards the end of the game. And I felt like, especially when Spurs were freshening things up from their end, I thought, well, this is where we could do with doing a sub or two here, get some fresh legs on, and let's try and build on what we've already done and try and get the winner. There's no one I wanted to see come on.
This is kind of my thing, is like, I felt like we needed to do subs, especially if you look at Antonio. By the end of the game, that dude was done. Like, I'm not like, he put in everything he could. He got shifted out wide in the last part of the game with Kudus going up front, which I was like, bold, bit of a wild decision. I thought it ended up sort of working, but I was like, that's a wild decision to make. And then there's a shot, I think it's at the end of the game. I think it's right at the end of the game. It might even be after full time. And I only saw it at the corner of my eye because obviously I'm doing the watch along and talking to people and finishing the show so Gonza can do the whatever. And I'm pretty sure there's just a shot of him lying on the floor, just like, because you can't. It's something you said, actually. I want to ask you about this. It's something that one of the things that stood out to me is what the guy said. Was it behind you in the stand or next to you in the stand? Disproves Antonio can do 90 minutes.
Yeah, he sits at the end of our row. Yeah.
I think for me, it's almost not the opposite, but it proves Antonio shouldn't do 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that guy was dead, and I can guarantee you when it comes to the next game, I am going to be bricking it. Before that game, I'm going to be like, holy moly, oh, what's going to go on with Antonio? And I feel like when you look at the bench, really the only player, and this is a pretty damning indictment, to be honest. Like, there were probably 2 players on the bench who I thought could come on and it wouldn't make the situation worse. And that was arguably Ben Johnson, although, to be honest with you, I think wherever he came on, it would have probably had a negative-ish impact ability-wise. And Mubama, and we weren't going to see Mubama because Moyes doesn't do youth players.
Well, outside of that, have you still got the bench? Have you still got the bench there?
Yes.
Yeah, just bring up on the screen as a ticker banner. There you go. That's West Ham's bench. Now, before we discuss this more, because I just want to sort of reiterate what I was meaning by when I said there was nobody I wanted to come on. And also I want to talk about the subs in depth as well, because of just comments that's been made on videos of mine in the last couple of days, and it's frustrating me a little bit. And somebody at the very start of this video has a similar frustration, actually. Anyway, I just want to point in the direction of our Patreon at patreon.com/Hammers Chat, where you can support the channel if you want from £3.60 per month. But you can also enter into our prediction competitions, where we're giving away a load of signed shirts. We're already giving away a signed Sufal shirt, a signed Ariola shirt, potentially this signed Lucas Paqueta shirt. I'm not sure yet. I haven't checked, but I feel like somebody must have predicted 1-1 Brennan Johnson. It feels like a fair score and scorer to possibly. So maybe someone's won the Paqueta one, but there will be another signed shirt up for grabs on Saturday against Wolves as well. But also right now, next week, we are doing a watch along at the Colour Factory for the Bayer Leverkusen game. Next week, we are away to Bayer Leverkusen. So at the Hackney Wick, over in Hackney Wick at the Colour Factory, there will be a Hammer Chat live show where we will do half an hour or so building up to the game, and then we'll have a big watch along. If you go to patreon.com/Hammers Chat, you can grab a ticket. You get a £5 discount if you're a patron. So even if you join Patreon for £3.60, you save £5 on your ticket. So you save a bit of money. They're on sale for patrons until Monday. Then if there's any remaining tickets, they'll go on sale to our subscribers on YouTube, and they will not have the discount that patrons have. So we have a big event next Thursday. So if you go into the game, enjoy it. But if not, and you can get to Hackney Wick, you fancy coming and supporting Hammers Chat with our first ever live show, or that you want to watch the game with a load of other West Ham fans, then do come along. Tickets are on Patreon right now. Much appreciated for all support. Anyway, Charlie, bench. When I said I don't want to see any subs, and I appreciate it. I'm not saying these players are bad, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're bad. It's just that Ben Johnson was in good nick a few weeks ago. Haven't really seen him. Came on against Newcastle, didn't look great. I don't want to see Ogbonna Creswell coming on. Phillips, no. Earthy, I'm not against it, but there's nothing to showcase why he could come on and do it. Cornet, listen, I was a huge fan of Cornet when we signed him. And I don't think he's had a fair crack at West Ham. And I don't think he's helped this situation. I don't think him or Moyes have helped the situation here. But it's difficult to want to see him come on in a game which is hanging in the balance when there's no form, there's nothing to go on there. And it's, who do I trust more? A tired Michail Antonio or a unknown Maxwell Cornet? It's probably a tired Michail Antonio, truth be told. And then it's the same thing with Ings and Mubama. Ings has done well, but the game against Burnley is a completely different scenario as to what was playing out last night against Spurs, where Burnley were throwing the kitchen sink and it was all around their 18-yarder to this one. I wouldn't have been against it. I wouldn't have been disgruntled had Ings and Mubama come on, but I get why Moyes didn't do the changes. However, to go to full 360 here, it's his fault. It's his fault we're in this situation where these players haven't got any momentum or form behind them. He's not used them. We have 12 players now. We have the starting 11 last night, plus Edson Alvarez, and that's it. So when we play Wolves, Alvarez will come in. I imagine it'll be Ward-Prowse that drops out, and that will be our sub. He may bring on Johnson if he has to, possibly Ings or Phillips if he really has to. But that's it. It's almost like we've got a squad of 12 players at the minute, and it's quite frankly not good enough really to spend this much money and also to have he's been here for over 4 years now, which is ages in the Premier League. So how have you managed to assemble a squad where you won't even utilise the players on the bench? But this is where you look at the January transfer window and think, why Ben Rama and Finance? Why?
Yeah.
Had one of them been on the bench last night, they would have come on. So listen, I didn't want any subs to come on because I don't trust them. But I don't trust them because I've not seen them for the last few weeks. So I get why Moyes left them on. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I think even if they were, I don't know, being seen more often, I don't know which one of those players would really change the game. I think the big one for me is Phillips, obviously. I think Phillips is a guy who should be an option, and he just isn't. Ben Johnson, I feel like, is a guy who is very useful, but I don't know if he's going to come on and change a game sort of thing. But I love him in the squad, and I think he's an incredibly useful player. Outside of that, I mean, I look at that bench, you say, right, Cresswell, done, old. Any of these players see it. I don't mean to insult you with what I'm about to say. Cresswell, done, old. Ogbonna, done, old. Cornet, done, not old, but my God, apparently his knees are old or something. I don't know what really was going on there. Ings, done, old. Like, it's... it's a squad building issue over the last couple of years, and I don't necessarily, how do I word this? It's a really difficult problem to solve because it's a consistently it's a problem that never stops getting worse, if you know what I mean. You know,
Yeah.
you look at it and you go, well, unless you just sell every single player who's getting really old, in which case who's buying these players, and then buying a bunch of young players, how are you going to solve this issue? And it's something that you just sort of have a tide that you constantly have to fight against, and we've gotten better, but at the same time there's still notable problems. But you look at that first 11 and we've sort of almost got to the stage where it's kind of works for us, but you're still looking at the bench and looking further afield in that squad, and it's a big problem. It's a big problem. And I feel like the biggest one for me, and it's so obvious, and it's just the striker. It's ridiculous. And Danny Ings is a perfect example of the problem with we have up front, right? And the problem with our transfers over the last however many years. And like, for example, I was talking about this on the watch along yesterday, and I said that we're once again it's coming back to bite us. Fornals, Ben Rama, like you say, not getting a striker who is the replacement for Mikel Antonio is yet again coming up once more, and will continuously come up until it happens. And I sort of I had said that everyone's to blame. So that being Moyes, that being Steiden, that being David Sullivan, right? And I think all three of them are. Because realistically, that transfer committee, whatever you want to call it, hell, you can lob Mark Noble in if you really want, but I don't believe he has any power in the situation. But let's just lob him in if you really want to vibe it, right? You can't have looked at that January transfer window. And I said this last time, it's very simple transfer windows. First things first, don't get worse. Pretty simple solution, really. From the beginning to the end, if it's the same, not ideal, but fine. If it's worse, oh, something's gone real wrong here. And not only was it not the same, we got significantly worse. The squad got smaller. The only two guys in the squad who weren't first choice starters, who were getting consistent game time, they're both gone. So that was useful, wasn't it? You're leaving us with Cornet of all flipping people, and you didn't get the striker we need, right? And I feel like with Phillips, as much as it is an awful transfer at this point, and it's being spoken about very consistently as being maybe one of the worst we've ever seen in loan signing wise at West Ham, and I think that's a fair comment given how it's gone. We at least saw the problem at DM and went, right, let's try and solve that. Here's a guy we've wanted for a long time. It makes sense. Let's try and make it happen. Like we at least attempted to solve that problem, even though it's gone completely off the rails, and my lord has it been terrible. We at least attempted to solve that problem. Up front, we have not attempted to solve that problem. And someone in the replies was saying to me, oh, it's 100% Moyes' fault because he was offered players, therefore why didn't he take them? Well, Danny Ings is the exact reason why. Because Danny Ings was clearly a panic signing. It was someone who was very clear from the moment he was even linked to West Ham that he wasn't going to work inside Moyes' system. And yet now we're in a situation where people go, oh, let's bring Danny Ings on in the number 10. Danny Ings at number 10. That's the solution to our problems. It's Danny Ings at number 10. If that is not a damning indictment on the way this squad has been built, then I don't know what is, because that's insane.
It's like a vegetarian being hungry and offering them a burger, and when they say no, go, well, what's your problem then? You've been offered food. You can't complain about being hungry. You don't want. You've said no to food. No, I've said no to meat. No, you said no to food. I've said no to meat. No, you said no to food.
And then, but then what happens right after this is then we all go, right, well, we need to sell Ings. Okay, well, who's buying Danny Ings from us on that wages at that age when he's not performing very well and hasn't scored in this many games? And then we go, well, we need to buy a striker. And it's like, well, we got bloody Danny Ings on the bench caught like in the way. What are we going to do? Just have Danny Ings not in the match day squad on a 6-figure salary? It's like when you take those opportunities, it becomes even worse. And this is my problem, is I just feel like this is a problem that's just going to consistently come up until we get someone who's similar enough to Mikel Antonio to where we are in a situation like that and we go, okay, let's make it happen. And again, I feel like Mubama deserves the opportunity to give him that shot. I feel like he's the closest thing we have to Mikel Antonio. It's not 1-for-1, but it's much closer than we're going to get with anyone else. The problem is Moyes just doesn't want youth players. But again, that's not something new since January. We've known this the entire time he's existed in football. So why the hell we've thought that it's just not an issue we should try and solve? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Anyway, right, we're going to take your comments for the last 10 minutes, starting with Boss, who says if you didn't fancy anyone coming on, it's Moyes' fault for not giving players the game time. Doofus said we missed Alvarez badly last night. George said Moyes and Sullivan cost us 2 points, and especially with a terrible transfer window. Ian pointing out that in our last 2 home games against Villa and Spurs, they've made 9 substitutions before we've made any. Should we not be pushing for a winner by making changes rather than watch the opposition do it? Infinitely has ordered tickets to the event at Hackney Wick next week, so thank you very much, Infinitely. We shall see you there. Someone, Rich, has gone and had a look at that Lucas Paqueta signed shirt competition. Can't see a winner, so there you go. Next Saturday, that shirt will be up for grabs again. Hopefully, somebody can win it. I want my bloody wooden hanger back from my wardrobe. Thank you very much. John says, do you think Antonio was offside when he missed that chance? He looked at the funny thing is, had Antonio scored that chance, VAR would have looked at it, possibly went back to the foul by Paqueta on James Maddison outside the box. Right. And although what Antonio scored, it might have ended up being a free kick to Spurs outside our 18-yarder. So in a weird way, it's possibly a good thing Antonio missed, because had he scored, we could have had a free kick for Spurs outside the box. So there you go.
That is the way I would choose to think about it, and not think about the fact that he just put it anywhere apart from the exact place you put it, bro. Please, I beg. That's the way I'll choose to think about it now.
Yeah,
thanks, Gio. I needed that.
He's so composed against Newcastle, and then last night.
I've said this for years when he's up front. The more time Mikel Antonio has to think about it, the more chance it's going to go wrong, and it'll fluff the chance. He had way too long to think about it. He had half the pitch to think about it, basically. And what did he do? Just hit it directly. Don't get me wrong, late into the game, tired. I can sprint full pace half the length of the pitch and then probably strike it with composure and power and pace and accuracy and finish it past the goalkeeper either. But at the same time, I'm not a Premier League footballer. So, yeah.
Gavino said not confident will solve the squad issues if we're considering new one-year deals for Juan and Fabianski's already had his, Gavino. It's already been extended, his one. Just kicking the squad rebuilding down the road. I don't mind Fabianski. I agree with Doug Bonner one, by the way. I think I also think a keeper is a different situation to your outfielders. Stephen said, I think Moyes will have a big decision to make depending on the Bayer Leverkusen first leg result. All eggs in the league or Europe are basket. Otherwise, the first 11 will be rinsed to compete in either or both. Nathan said the squad depth issues on Moyes, but we do have players with talent that should be played. We need to continue to give chances to the bench, or else why do we have a bench? Paul says, Ings, Skamaka, Antonio are all capable players. I still believe they were brought to provide Moyes with options. It's just Moyes is limited and hasn't got the ability to switch tactics. I just want to point on a few things. Nathan said, in order to trust them, they need more game time. Phillips isn't bad, but we knew he didn't play at City and needs game time to get more out of this rut or it won't improve. And Brian said, incorrect subs on Saturday and should have made a sub or two last night. Now, I'm highlighting this for a reason, because Sam says, do people not realise there's a middle ground between bad subs and no subs? And this is, in my reviews, people were like, oh, you were thinking Antonio shouldn't have been subbed against Newcastle, but now you're complaining he wasn't subbed off. So hang on a minute. I said continuously, Antonio should have been subbed against Newcastle. I just didn't want to see Calvin Phillips come on for him. There's a huge difference. That's why I'm putting up those ones, because I think that's the right way of going about it. I think the issue for myself wasn't that there was subs made against Newcastle. It was just the wrong sub, in my opinion. Last night, I get what Moyes has done. I do get it. I don't like it, but he's the one that sort of manoeuvred the situation, because there's no form for the players on the bench. But I get why he looked at his bench and thought, I just don't trust this lot to go out there and not lose. And I think he was just scared after what happened at Newcastle just a handful of days ago, because if I've still got a hangover from it, I think it's feasible that the manager and players would also still have a bit of a hangover from that game as well, and think, hang on a minute. And I could feel it in the crowd last night when we were defending our 18-yarder, particularly late on. There was this nerves, there was this frustration. Well, you just get rid of this bloody ball and get out the pitch, because we just don't trust you to defend, to see this one out. Jack is here. Jack, who is the co-host over on Hamalytics with Charlie, says, positive spin by making proactive sales of Said, Pablo and Tilo instead of letting contracts run. Does that give us the money and space to bring in some younger squad options in the summer?
Yeah, just wish it happened at the same time. But yeah, I mean, I think like it's different, right? Tilo Kera, like whatever, don't care. Like Syed and Pablo are the ones really. Like and it's just one of them would have been fine. But yeah, I mean, it had to happen. Like neither of those were two who you could actually get some sort of money from. You're not going to get anything for Cresswell. You're not going to get anything from Bonner if you tried selling them if they don't leave on a free. You know, you're not going to get anything from them regardless, just because they're thing. They were the ones who you were going to get money from. It's just a shame we did it all at once when they were important. But yeah, I mean, in the summer it'll be fine. It's just in the meantime, it's just going to have to be.
Yeah, I think
Dealing
both
with
things can be both things can be true. I think what Jack said is true, but my comeback to that would be it's at the sacrifice of this season.
Yeah.
It's like we're willing to sacrifice the second half of this season in order to gain that long-term benefit. And I think both is true here. Now, if we were 10th in the league, Charlie, I would be okay with it. I'd say, yeah, I get it. We're not playing for anything. Cash in now, bank the money and spend it in summer. But we were in a better position in January than we are now, actually. We had not a firm grip, but we were favourites to probably go on and finish in a Europa League spot. We probably still are because we're 7th. However, teams have games in hand ahead of us. And fingers crossed, Brentford can go beat Brighton this evening and just help us out a little bit there. Unfortunately, Newcastle and Wolves dropped points in much lesser games last night at home to Everton and away to Burnley. So that was like, whew, okay, that's good results for West Ham. Nobody's gained ground on us in the last 24 hours. Brighton may do this evening. I expect Brighton to this evening. So I think what Jack's saying is correct. But I think we've also sacrificed this season in order to get those benefits, which I'm unhappy about. Percy says, just putting out there, Moyes wasn't up for signing anyone in January apart from Phillips. Surely the ownership should have stepped in. It's so clear within the numbers. It depends on what you see. It depends on what you believe, Percy. I don't believe that personally. I think Moyes would have wanted somebody else in.
I don't think you can tell. I don't think you could ever convince me that Moyes didn't look at the squad in January and gone, "No, we don't need us. I refuse to sign anyone." I just don't believe that to be the case. Like, no, don't get me wrong. Do I think he is stubborn about who he wants and why he wants them and stuff like that? Yeah, you only have to look at the striker situation and how long we didn't sign anyone because it wasn't close enough to Antonio or whatever, like to see that as evidence of existing. But I don't think he didn't want to sign anyone. I just think, I mean, again, it was one of the things when I was having a conversation about it on the watch along, right, about the idea of like who was to blame for January and all these sort of things. David Sullivan, just every January transfer window when it's going all right, just does not want to spend. He never does it. He never ever does it. It's happened before Moyes has been here, and if Moyes leaves before David Sullivan happens, it will happen again. If we're doing well in January, we just won't do what we need to do.
Yeah, it's Nathan saying about Abraham Osman. Terry saying Moyes has to take the blame. He's had 4 years and the money has been back more than any manager can remember. Yet time and time again, proves you cannot manage a squad. He's killed our bench. In regards to the subs, yes, I agree with that. In regards to Cornet and I suppose Mubama to some extent, Ings, that lies with Moyes not getting a play with him. I think he's partly responsible. I just don't think he's fully responsible. I find it hard to look beyond David Sullivan for this one because the Osman one, I think there's evidence there with Abraham Osman, which is that Steiden tried to get someone, Moyes was happy with him, and Sullivan crapped himself and pulled out the deal. And then it was almost just rumours, but as soon as Brighton did a deal for him a week later, that to me proves that there was a deal there to be done. It's just that Sullivan got A, cold feet, B, didn't like the transfer fee we were paying for an unproven player, or C, and this is the one I believe, a particular agent was in the ear of David Sullivan suggesting he doesn't sign Abraham Osman. In fact, he tries to sign WHUTOT instead, and then we turned our attention to WHUTOT. Discovered we can't sign him either. So that trustworthy agent of David Sullivan proved to be untrustworthy. Who would have thought it? Eh?
Shock.
Yes, massive shock. This is why you got Tim Steiden, David Sullivan, because you were trying to get away from the agent stuff. Then you go back to the agent stuff because I don't know why. Anyway, I personally blame David Sullivan more than Moyes, Noble, and Steiden. I think they've all got their part to play. Nobody's blameless. Steiden negotiating with the wrong agent, incredibly embarrassing, but could have been resolved. But the guy with the checkbook, he's the one that I believe pulled the plug on that deal. Would Osman have made a difference? Truth be told, don't know, Charlie. I couldn't tell you how he's got on since we were linked to him till now. I could not tell you how he's got on at his club. He could have played no games. He could have played loads of games, scored loads of goals. I don't know. And truth be told, I do not care. But the January transfer window, nah, not for it. Right, we're going to start wrapping this one up. A couple more comments. Leo says, I mean, you're talking about the same person who didn't play Lanzini last season at all because we didn't have the squad depth. He didn't, and also said we didn't need Julian Alvarez because we have Mikel and Antonio. Finn says, I think it's a little naive when people say Moyes won't use his bench or sign players. He wants a small squad, but he did consistently play Benrahma, Fornals, Fredericks, Diop, Yarmolenko, etc.
Yeah. You can't, again, as much as we can beat around as many bushes as you want to beat around, right? Go to a garden center, have at it. I don't mind, right? The point is, if you tell me that they didn't sit down in a situation and then go, all right, we're going to get rid of two of Fornals, Benrahma, and Cornet. You cannot tell me that David Moyes went, yeah, leave me with the one I've not been playing. You cannot tell me that. I don't get, listen, he's obviously culpable because it happened. He's obviously partly culpable for it. You can quibble about percentages as much as you like. I really genuinely do not care, right? I don't mind. We can say Moyes is 99% involved. I really don't mind, right? But my point is that he was using Benrahma. He was using Fornal. Jack was the one who told me. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like 50% of the games or 50% of the minutes they played or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, right? Cornet, he clearly doesn't trust. He very clearly doesn't want to play. You cannot tell me that in the January transfer window, if they all sat down and had this conversation, David Moyes went, leave me the one I don't want now. It's just not the case. It just can't be. As much as there are other things that are definitely... That cannot be true. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Finn says we can point to the 14-15, 15-16, 2021, 22-23 as January windows rebottled. There's a common denominator. And the thing is, 3 different managers there with Moyes, Allardyce and Slaven Bilic as well. Jason said Moyes stifles squads and academies. Whichever players we have, Moyes will make 14 of them feel great and the rest feel awful.
My biggest problem with Moyes, and it always will be, is just his reluctance to play youth players is so frustrating. It's just massive. As much as I don't believe, as much as I'm not looking at George Murphy and going, put him in, it's going to change the game completely, it's going to change the world. I'm like, bro, I look at the bench and I just discount them as even options because I know they're not going to come on. And there's people on there who one, deserve the opportunity given how well they've been playing, and two, could actually be useful if we gave them a shot. It's not even just the senior. That's such a big problem with Moyes, and it always will be. He won't change. He always will be, and it's so sad to watch because I'm just like, just please, I beg.
In regards to last night's game, Charlie, what's your final words? Let's wrap this video up because we need to go record the Wolves preview next.
Of course, yeah.
What's your thoughts on last night's game?
Like I said, I think I'm more positive about it now than I was. I felt it was weird. After the game, I felt quite downbeat about it. I was like, I don't know. I just don't feel. It was maybe in the glow of it. It was quite a difficult game, all that sort of stuff. I just wasn't really vibing it. I think now, a little bit removed from it, a bit with hindsight, I'm relatively happy. I thought we showed a lot of positives. I think the change in the way we were playing, the formation and stuff, and the layout of the players and all that kind of stuff, sort of worked a bit better. I said before these 2 games that we've got 2 games to figure out what we do essentially in the first Leverkusen game when we don't have Alvarez. And I thought we tried something against Newcastle. It very, very clearly did not work. And I think we did try something in this one and it worked. So in that sense, we've at least figured something out. And 4 points from the Tottenham games this year is not a bad thing whatsoever. It puts a bit of pressure on us. Hopefully we should have potentially got a win. But realistically, I'm happy with it. And it means that we're not in the crapper. So I can only think about it in sort of muted positive terms at this point, Gio.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think 2 players I had concerns about going into the game was Kurt Zouma and James Ward-Prowse, and I thought they were 2 of our better players on the night. So I think going into the Wolves game, I think most of the players have decent form, actually. I think Emerson's always been, while his performances have dropped a little bit. That's because, in my opinion, because there's just no Lucas Paqueta ahead of him. It's not that he's playing badly or playing worse. It's just his partner's moved and he's not got that link up there. Emerson will be fine. Zouma had a good game. I think he's had a couple of decent games prior to that as well. Mavropanos, I think, looks really good. I'm really impressed by Mavropanos in the last few games. I'm becoming a bit of a fan of him. It's taken me until March, April to see it. I've been all season. I've been waiting to see why Stiden brought this guy to the club, and you've seen it in glimpses, but I also saw big mistakes in there as well. But now he's sort of cut them out a little bit, and I've been impressed by him. Alvarez is back after a massive rest. Souček, I think, is playing well. I think our front four playing really well. So I'm quite optimistic going into the Wolves game. And I think the reason that I felt a little bit with the draw, and what you might have done as well, is because we are playing for European football, and it perhaps felt that that wasn't enough to take into the league if we want to clinch 7th or 8th this season, which is what I still do. I still want us to get European football next season, and I think Saturday is huge for that. If we can beat Wolves, I wouldn't say that out the running per se, but that would give us a 6-point lead, and I know they've got a game in hand, but I've already recorded my video with the Wolves fan, which will go up on Friday. All I'm going to say is he's not very hopeful for European football. There's a lot of Wolves fans, by the sounds of it, already giving up with the season, which is crazy when I look at the league table. But that's how they feel, and I think if we could just beat them, that their motivation, their whatever, might just drop off a little bit. And they're running out of games to catch us now. We keep dropping points, but so do everyone else around us. It's like the relegation battle last season. Who drops the least points was basically the conversation. And that's what we're happening at in a minute. You know, Newcastle, us, Brighton, Chelsea, Wolves, we're all dropping points. But there's less and less games. The opportunity for teams to catch us are running out now. So if we can beat Wolves, that'd be a big step towards European football next year. I still won't be confident we'll get it, but I'll be optimistic. But we do need to get sort of tied up in the next 4 games, because I do not fancy going Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City needing to yield a significant portion of points. And also you've got the European football as well. But yeah, I'm happy, Charlie. Enjoyed it last night. Looking forward to Saturday.
Sweet. Well, everyone, we will be doing a preview. That'll be up tomorrow. We're able to record it now. So make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe so you don't miss out on it. Like the video, because it helps us out massively. And we shall see you after the next game. Geo, appreciate it.
Ta-ra.
See you later, everyone.